I'd like to call the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting to order Thursday, March 16th, 2023. We could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ethan, if you would please call the roll.
President Ballerin.
Here.
Trustee Evans.
Here.
Trustee Pollock.
Here.
Trustee Clarity.
Here.
Trustee Marshazga.
Here.
Trustee Hannan.
Here.
Trustee Gallegos.
Here.
Village Manager Francis.
Here.
Village Attorney Molina.
Here.
Also present, Village Clerk Sol.
Thank you. First on our agenda tonight is the President's report, and I do not have a report, so I will move on to the Manager's report.
Thank you, President Ballerin. I have a couple of items this evening. One, I wanted to recognize department heads and village clerk Sol on their work applying for IRMA grants in 2022. Riverside actually received the most grants out of any IRMA member last year. So we received $22,143 in grants. It was for a number of different options or items, including body cameras, DEI training, facility equipment and safety equipment, fleet safety training and equipment, work zone safety equipment. And so the largest amount was $10,000, which were for the body cameras as part of their grant program. So out of 70 members, for us to get $22,000 of their full grant program is a pretty great achievement by those staff members. I also wanted to outline a couple of Parks and Rec related items. Parks and Rec started Imagination Station drop-in playtime at the water tower on Wednesdays from 9:30 to 11. The program provides children from 1.5 to 5 years old for a safe indoor environment to explore. And so parents can purchase punch cards in advance or at the program to use at their convenience. Spring soccer registration is currently open, but the spots are filling up quickly. We have an adult watercolor class on Wednesday mornings that is being held at the Quincy Community Center. A new session will begin on April 12th, and there's still openings and there's still time to sign up. I want to recognize and thank everyone that participated in our first ever Great Puzzle Race held this month with 11 teams of up to 5 individuals registered. It was a great turnout and will definitely be offered by Parks and Recreation again in the future. Teams had up to 2 hours to put together a 500-piece puzzle, which was not a problem for the winning team, who completed it in just 44 minutes. Also want to recognize the Riverside Public Library for donating prizes for the event. And then finally, the annual egg hunt will be on Saturday, April 1st at Big Pulp Park at 10 a.m. This event is free for children 10 and under, so bring a basket or containers for eggs, and you can get a picture with the bunny. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Manager Francis. Next on the agenda is resident comments, so I ask if there's any public comment on any non-agenda items. Yes, sir. You please.
Good evening, thank you. My name is David Bartell, and I represent the owner of 8 West Avenue in the matter of the Groveland flood wall. At your last meeting, you heard a presentation from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers project team regarding the status of this project with a preliminary drawing of its location. The location of the flood wall would greatly affect the property at 8 West Avenue, a property that is not in the flood zone and has never flooded in over 30 years. The wall that is projected to be built would destroy access to the river, destroy a covered deck that the owners enjoy and their extended family, a shed, and could potentially, depending on exactly where it's placed, could potentially actually be within 15 feet of the house at the back of 8 West Avenue, therefore mandating its removal. It would also destroy quite a number of trees on the property. So I wanted to bring that definitely to the board's attention. It's also going to affect, would obviously affect the property value of 8 West Avenue. The Army Corps of Engineers considers flood wall flooding by height, and that is how civil engineers look at the problem. However, floods are caused by rainfall over a watershed area, a volume of water. That volume then runs down the river. And of course, as you measure it, as the USGS hydrological station here in Riverside measures it, gauge height and discharge volume. Those run in tandem, but when you change the river channel, which the flood wall will do, that will change the height of the flood. So for the Army Corps of Engineers to say that if we put the flood wall in the east side of Des Plaines River in Riverside is protected and nothing will happen on the west side is probably not true. There's going to be some greater effects of water on that side of the flood wall, of the river channel, because the water has to, the same amount of volume for the same amount of flood water has to go somewhere. So that's what I wanted to say. And again, I said, the 8 West Avenue owner objects to the flood wall. We'll see what happens as the Army Corps of Engineers and the village proceed further with the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and we did take your letter and pass it on to both the Army Corps and our engineers for their review. So we appreciate you coming tonight. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ethan?
Yep. Approve voucher list of bills, March 16th, 2023. Approve Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes, March 2nd, 2023. Review and file police, fire, and community development monthly reports. Review and file Riverside TV Commission regular meeting minutes, February 13th, 2023. And a resolution approving executive session minutes and authorizing and approving the release of certain executive session meeting minutes of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverside.
Thank you. Do any of these items need to be moved by any of the trustees or public? Hearing none, if I can have a motion and a second.
Motion made.
Motion by trustee Gallego, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Marshaga. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Trustee
Sol?
Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Pollock?
Aye.
Trustee Clarity?
Aye.
Trustee Marshaga?
Aye.
Trustee Hannan?
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We move on to department board and commission reports. First on the agenda is a review and file community development annual report. Ms. Monroe.
Hi, good evening. We are pleased to offer the Community Development 2022 Annual Report, and I'm happy to answer questions for you. I'll just note a couple of highlights. Building construction remained generally steady or comparable to that of the last couple of years, the last 2 years. It did trend downward slightly in both the number of permits, the value of construction, and our contractor licensing. And that's reflective of a lot of market trends that we've seen over the past year. A lot of our property transfers and sales, so our certificates of compliance, have also trended downward from past records, but there's still really fairly steady, a lot of activity and volume still. We issued 729 permits last year. I'll also note that our businesses, our economic development efforts in Riverside remain fairly steady. We have had a couple of businesses leave Riverside, but those have been replaced with other businesses that have opened. So everything from clothing stores to additional, barber shops and retail spaces, bar and grill, as well as the upcoming opening of Sherwin-Williams that's hopefully completing construction within the next month or so. I would say we're hoping to have an opening soon. Finally, I'll note, or just about finally, we have a rental housing and inspections program. I gave an update to the board in late last year about the program. I'll just note that we do highlight it in the report. Our activity continues to ramp up for the program. We're getting a lot of positive compliance, and our inspector, Frank Krupa, has offered an invitation to the village president and any of you if you'd like to go on a ride-along and experience any inspections or just get a better look at our code enforcement activities. And I will end with just noting the busy season we've had for our planning and zoning efforts. This year, we, in 2021, had 5 cases brought before Planning and Zoning Commission, and this year, or last year, experienced 17. And so much of that was related to our successfully adopted transit-oriented development code updates, but quite a few of those were also related to both commercial and residential variations and site plan reviews. So we're hoping for just another good year, and I'll answer any questions for you.
Any questions for Ms. Moreau? No. Ashley, thank you. It was very, very well put together, and you could tell Mr. Krupa to put me on a schedule. I will be happy to ride along with him.
Excellent. Yes, I will share that news. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Second on our agenda tonight is a discussion of no mow May to temporarily suspend the enforcement of an ordinance that limits the height of grass during the month of May. Director Tabb.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to give you a brief overview before I introduce one of the commissioners. Tonight, the Landscape Advisory Commission will be discussing the suspension of Title VII, Chapter 7 of the Village Ordinance, which limits the height of grass to 8 inches as part of the No Mow May initiative. That temporary suspension would occur as proposed between May 1st and May 31st. During that period of time, residents would not be cited for allowing their grass to exceed that 8-inch height. Of course, beginning June 1st, they would be required to then cut their grass, so they would not be fined. The whole No Mow May initiative is a concept that creates habitat and feeding opportunities for the early season pollinators in the area. So with that, without further ado, I will introduce Commissioner Dave Rubin to speak on this.
Hello. Dan has already mentioned some of the things I was going to say. The important thing is not mowing your lawn and other plants growing in your lawn will be beneficial for newly emerging bees by giving them more food sources. There's been a decline in native bee populations in Illinois and all over the country. Bees are the most effective pollinators of native plants and are also very important pollinators in agriculture. More than 150 food crops in the United States depend on pollinators, including all fruit and grain crops. The U.S. Forest Service says without pollinators, the human race and all of Earth's terrestrial ecosystems would not survive. In the United States, pollination of agricultural crops is valued at $10 billion annually. Over 1 million people in 177 cities are involved in bee conservation and are affiliated with Bee City USA. Some of the cities of the 177, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Appleton, Wisconsin, Atlanta, Georgia, Glenview, Madison, Wisconsin, Barrington Hills, and even the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And Countryside just approved a No Mow May recently, and they're going to have No Mow May until Mother's Day this year. The Landscape Advisory Commission will be educating residents about the importance of pollinators and will be promoting native plants, especially spring bloomers. This is part of a long-term plan we have of encouraging the use of native plants, especially native spring bloomers. If required, Landscape Advisory Commission can organize a sign-up for residents if they want to sign up for the No Mow May, and we can give these residents signs to put out in their, on their lawn so that their neighbors will know why they're not mowing. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do on LAC. We appreciate it. Is there any questions for Mr. Rubin? Ms. Fowler.
I have a couple of questions. I'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
One is, you mentioned Countryside does no mow May till Mother's Day, and I know other villages do that. And in researching this, I was told that's because the benefit really drops off quite a bit after mid-May. Do you agree with that? or is
Well,
it-
it depends on the weather in the spring.
Okay,
Like last year, I think the benefits were coming even later than that.
so the whole month makes sure that, depending on the weather, okay, I understand that. Second question is not mowing a benefit if you're treating your lawn?
If you're putting pesticides in your lawn or herbicides, you probably do not want to do this because that'll kill the bees.
So the traditional true green treatments that people have,
Right.
they
And
either
if it-
need to suspend that or don't bother.
Right, and if they're treating
Okay.
their lawns, there won't be anything besides grass growing, so it's
Right.
not going to be beneficial.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Mr. Hannon?
We did, the village, with your cooperation, set aside a piece of land, I think just next to the library.
Right.
Was there any measurement on the benefit of that?
No specific measurement. And turned out last year, because of the weather, there wasn't much of a difference between that plot and the areas next to it. I mean, there were, more blooming in that area because it wasn't mowed, but we didn't really get a count of bees or other pollinators.
Yeah, the feedback I've gotten from residents with the concern is, a lot of the lawns among properties are connected in some way. Some are divided by a driveway, others are not. And the concern is with sort of not mowing in a full month, does that allow, weeds and other things you don't want on your lawn to take root? And if you have a neighbor who's doing no mow, does that cause you, as the neighbor who's not doing no mow May, to, have to deal with weeds that you wouldn't have otherwise had? So I think there's, I like what we did last year. I'd love to find a compromise between the two, just in light of the neighbors who are concerned about the health care of their lawn.
That's kind of along the same lines that I've been hearing, because, when dandelions go to seed, the seed doesn't just
Oh,
fall
right,
down.
it goes everywhere,
It
right.
spreads with the wind, so your no mow becomes my mow.
Right.
And the problem with that is twofold. One is, it spreads multiple neighbors and may in turn make them use pesticides, which is then defeating what we're trying to do. I would much rather work on a sustainable initiative where we teach the residents to plant lilacs, peonies, bee balms, the native plants that actually the bees can rely on, rather than an invasive species, dandelions, which then by no mowing causes more invasive species. I mean, that was actually mentioned in the LAC report about Swan Pond, about, mowing that stops some of the invasives, and how hard it is to get rid of invasives that are non-natives. So my personal feeling would be that we do more of an education where we work with plants rather than weeds. And the other reason that is, you don't hear this like staff hears this and like the trustees and I hear this, is, just the issues between neighbors and neighbors is bigger than one would think, especially in a town so small. And it just, I know some neighbors or a lot of people are very, very particular about their lawns. And once these dandelions go to seed, it's like air pollution. You can't stop it from crossing the street. So that's why I personally do not like the idea of no mow. I would rather go in educational and plant natives. But that's mine.
Well, whether or not we have the No Mow May, LAC will be promoting native plants. And hopefully, we'll have some way to distribute them to people who want them.
Perfect, I appreciate that. Any other questions? And we need to have a consensus on whether we want this to come in front of the board as a suspension of ordinance. So I need to, yes.
I like the idea of no mow May, and it's only in May, and it's only for how many weeks? Like 2 or 3 weeks till Mother's Day? The grass won't grow tall enough for us to have to, I don't think we're gonna have to suspend the ordinance. I mean, it's 3 weeks of grass.
Mr. Tabb starts cutting grass the second week of April. So,
But it is, like, you can decide whether to do it or not, right? It's not like mandated that,
Oh, right. Not
Right.
mandated at all.
so
no.
whether you do no mow May, whether we promote it or not, people can not mow for 3 weeks.
Right.
It
And I
would-
think people are going to do it regardless of
Yeah.
what happens here.
So, like, the community garden could promote it. The community garden could promote it maybe if the village won't, help you. I would like the village to support the effort. But there are alternatives to get the word out if it doesn't happen.
but you confused me a bit. You say no mow May, but you say stop at Mother's Day. Mother's Day is May 14th. Which one are we talking about?
Yeah, I would definitely accept until Mother's Day. That would be fine.
Okay.
I would maybe suggest that if this were to be a registration program that was administered by the LAC, that part of that process would be to have the consent of the adjacent neighbors as part of the application process to receive the signage, because that might help address some of the concerns you raised, President Mallory.
I feel like that's overcomplicating a little bit. It's just 3 weeks, I mean, you guys can send the neighbors to me if you want me to manage the calls. I just don't think we should overcomplicate it. It's just not mowing for 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
So we have an option on the board is allowing no mow May to go through Mother's Day. Mr. Pollack.
I guess I would take a more cautious approach and do till Mother's Day this year. Even if we did it the whole month, I still think I would support it as a trial. Do it one time, do it this year, see the impact. I suspect that we'll have a very small number of people participate because my guess is that most people treat their lawns. And so they should be aware that don't bother with no mow May if you're treating your lawn. But I'm willing to give it a try. The more cautious approach is to say till Mother's Day, so that's what I would suggest.
Okay. Clarity?
I would be okay. I'm okay with a trial, for this year. I'm comfortable with the month of May. I don't feel strongly that we have to cut it off at Mother's Day, but I'm happy to meet in the middle if that's what trustees are comfortable with.
I really like the idea of talking to the neighbors, because I mean, the amount of calls I've gotten when we didn't spray for dandelions, and people getting dandelions in their lawn and got an earful. So again, I'm looking for some sort of better way to address this, and if I'd still like to get some sort of neighbor buy-in before you have that.
I agree with you, but the problem with the neighbors is, you've seen dandelion spores when they fly. I'd have to get your permission.
Well, I think the adjacent neighborhood is a good compromise as far as, but I agree that it's a, it creates potential lawn issues for everyone.
I say let's try it for a year. And I'm fine with Mother's Day or the end of May. How else would we get the data back to us to determine it for the following years?
Okay. Well, since I would support you to Mother's Day. Does that work? And that way I don't think there could be, I don't think if we do Mother's Day, there won't be that big of an effect where I think neighbors would be impacted. I think we'd have the dandelions down before they spore. At least we'll know about it this year.
Yeah, Mother's Day is May 14th, so that's 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's actually starting, I mean, grass is growing already.
Yeah.
You know, I've already got some stuff coming. So does everybody feel good with Mother's Day?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question.
Shoot.
This is just because I'm ignorant about these things. Even if you're mowing, I mean, I see people who mow their yards, and I see they have dandelions that sprout and spread.
Oh, yeah, we have that.
So even if you're mowing every week to 10 days, does it make that much difference in terms of dandelions spreading? I don't know. I honestly really don't know.
But I guess it depends on how high you adjust your mower.
And how often?
Well, it'd be 8 inches or less, right?
Yeah, if you mow, you're going to get some of the dandelions, but then between mowings,
I suppose
some will
not
come back.
mowing, you're going to get more. You're still going to get them, but if you're not
Fewer
treating
if
your
you mow.
lawn,
I mean,
but you're going to get more if you don't mow. Okay. That's just educational on my part. Thank you.
I think 14th is a good compromise, and if LAKC could then continue with their education program.
Sure.
So next year, we have black-eyed Susans, lilacs, and peonies to rely on rather than dandelions and chickweed. All right, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate everything you guys done.
And do you need us to register homes for this?
No. Yeah, I think for this short of a period, I don't think that's necessary. I think we should try to make it as simple as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
If I may, Attorney Molina, do we have to do any formal action with suspending it or consensus from the board since it's only 2 weeks? Is that?
The consensus of the board can constitute direction not to issue citations for the 8 inches for that period, regardless of what the actual height is. So to suspend enforcement, just direction to staff. Actually, you have the authority to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Given that, I would prefer a motion if no one objects.
Sure.
I'd make a motion that we suspend the 8-inch grass cutting regulation for up until May 14th for this year only.
I'll second.
Second by, motion made by trustee Pollock, second by Ms. Evans. Further.
I thought Attorney Molina just advised that we don't need to suspend the ordinance, that could be done by consensus of the board, and then I just heard a motion that we want to actually suspend it, so I'm,
Well, we
So
can,
what I had said is that, that can happen, that would be adequate, but I think trustee Pollock preferred to make a motion. That's not wrong, it's just different. We don't have to go to that length, but it's not wrong.
Unnecessary.
not necessary, but it's
Not
good to be,
necessary.
it's on the record, so. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ethan, if you please call the roll.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Clarity.
Aye.
Trustee Marshaga. Trustee Hannan.
aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Motion carries. We move on to, is there any other reports this evening of any boards or commissions? Okay, hearing none, we move on to pending business. An ordinance authorizing the execution of the Fourth Amendment to a property purchase and sales contract for the sale of real estate property at 2710 South Harlem Avenue, Riverside, Illinois. Manager Francis.
Thank you. So with regard to this agreement, there have been a couple of changes that have been made that I will outline very briefly. Instead of the Village of Riverside selling our property to 2720 Harlem Avenue LLC, while we will still do that, 2720 won't be selling 2704 to Mint. Now it is in the form of a lease agreement with SBIL LLC, and they will be entering into a lease agreement. You'll also note that the nullification date has been updated from March 31st, 2023 to October 31st, 2023. This affords Starbuds to do the necessary renovations to 2704 South Harlem, and also affords them additionally time if for some reason things aren't meeting the timeline to target, and also affords them sufficient time because the agreement requires that they be open for a month prior to the village selling our property to 2720 Harlem Avenue, Harlem LLC.
Could you please just tell us what SBL LLC stands for the public?
That is the lease agreement with Dr. Normati would be with Starbuds. They currently have a store open in Burbank, and they have a cultivation site that they've opened in Rockford, Illinois.
Thank you. Any questions? Don't confuse Starbuds with Starbucks.
Correct.
Okay, hearing none, if I can have a motion and a second?
Motion is made.
Motion by trustee Gallego, second.
I'll second.
Second by trustee Evans. Any further comments? Hearing none, Ethan?
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Pollock?
Aye.
Trustee Clarity?
Aye.
Trustee Marshazga?
Aye.
Trustee Hannan?
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to new business. We have a resolution accepting the amended Village of Riverside Landscape Advisory Master Landscape Plan. Director Tag and Ms. Lambros? Okay.
I'll just do a real quick introduction, and I won't go into depth so I don't steal your thunder. I apologize last time. So the Master Landscape Plan originally is a document that was developed by the Landscape Advisory Commission in conjunction with Public Works. And every so often, there's revisions required because the landscape is always, it's fluid and changing. So this particular revision is heavily focused on Swan Pond, and I will leave it at that and introduce, once again, Commissioner Rubin and Commissioner Schaaf.
Good evening. Thank you so much for hearing from us tonight about our amendment to the Master Landscape Plan. This plan, I think, was about 10 years old. It's a responsibility that the LAC has, and if you've read almost 80-plus pages of it, it goes over the triangles, the parks, the long common, and the commons, and also the natural areas. And when we originally wrote the park section, we almost didn't know what to write for Swan Pond. This was before the Army Corps of Engineers had come in and done its work. Much has unfolded. I knew that we needed to go back, and you can see one paragraph became 5 pages as we sought to create a snapshot of Swan Pond at this point in time. We summarized the historical design philosophy by going back through some of those really amazing reports that some historians have done over time. We summarized as a timeline for you what has happened mostly over the last 15 years. We, last summer, contracted with ILM, who is the contractor for the village in treating with herbicide applications the Swan Pond area, and asked them to come out there with us and let us know what's growing out there. Just because you don't mow it doesn't mean a beautiful managed natural area grows up. And so they visited with us in the spring, and they visited with us again in late summer to assess the growth at different times, created a report. We have included the findings of that report. And in the last piece, we give maybe our 2 top-line pieces of advice for the Board of Trustees in the village to consider moving forward with the plan to create the managed natural area.
In addition to the Swan Pond changes, we updated some of the other information in there, like there were some links that didn't work anymore, so we updated the links. And there were some references to older dates in the plan. And we just updated, instead of a 2015 date, we have a more recent date in what has been completed or not.
Okay. Any questions? I have one. When you rated the parks. You rated Patriots Parks as poor. Was that, but you referenced it to its age. Are you saying that it has the possibility as it matures to move up the ladder, or are you requesting more? I was reading about trees and understory. Are you requesting that we plant more trees by the play equipment, or do something different out there? I know you did some grasses in the front and stuff like that, so I just want to know what your thoughts are with Patriots Park.
Well, that rating was probably almost 10 years ago. It's in the plan. We've done a more recent rating where I think we came up with it being okay. You know, not poor, not great, but okay.
Okay.
So we redlined all the edits that we made to this, and it sounds like we need to go back. And when we do a triangle review and update in the document, we'll make sure to update Patriots Park, which I think is in a considerably more improved position than it was then.
And LAC is planning later in the year to add, over the last few years, we've assessed many triangles and parks, and those are not in the plan right now, but we're planning on putting in an appendix or some addition later in the year with all the assessments we've done the last 4 years.
Okay. This was quite a document, so thank you very much. I know that a lot of work went into this. I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of this it's French to me, but there's a lot of valuable information in here, so thank you very much for all this work. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I just wanted to piggyback on what President Ballerine asked about why Patriots Park was labeled poor and now it's okay. What do we need to do to it to get it?
This was almost 10 years ago, but Mike Collins, along with the commissioner at the time, Bob Finn, did a lot to, we could follow up with the details. I wouldn't want to misstate it.
Do you happen to remember Patriots Park?
I'm Mary Plunkett. I'm also a commissioner at Landscape Advisory Commission, and Patriots Park is a park that we have been watching. I know that Bob Finn right now is he is the person, our volunteer, who is watching it on a regular basis. He is having 2 work days coming up, and this is one of the things that we found when we were evaluating triangles. When you look at, we have 50+ triangles, we have 8 parks, and each one of those needs to be evaluated. And as with everything, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So we do the best that we can to have a strong evaluation with 2 people going out, 2 commissioners going out. And when we do find a park that needs to be worked on, we have, with the help of Lisa Lambros, we have had scout troops working with us. We can get maybe 8 to 10 triangles looked at during the period from about April, late April, until September. And it's continually changing because what may look good this year doesn't look so good next year. It depends on who's helping out, pulling the invasives, making sure that everything else has a chance to grow up. So we are working on that, but actually we have a new plan this year. We'll see how good the new plan is, but I think it will be better because if we have an intense couple of days with a variety of people going out, we think we can hit most of them and have that rotation going where we get more looked at. And then we've got to find people to help us clean them up. I mean, we can always talk about this one looks great, this one looks not so good. The big thing, and I know Bob Finn has 2 work days that he's going to have this year. We're going to be cleaning thistle. Thistle has really gotten bad over there again. It is a group, Patriots Park is a park that is utilized by the community right in that area. I've observed at different times it is an active play area at times with children, but it needs a lot of work. It's kind of off the beaten track. So it's on our radar as our several other triangles, and we're going to keep at it. Anybody who wants to come out with us is welcome. Now listen, it's really easy. We can show you how to do it. I've got a bad back and 2 knees that are new, so we can all work together. But we are working on it. We're really, it's a good group. We're happy to do it.
So you're
And-
saying,
Yeah.
that it's just, there's a lot of landscaping needs, like
Yeah.
to take away the thistle and like weeding and clearing out the brush. I know it's always been a high maintenance park.
It is. It's small, but it
has a lot of
It's got a lot
planting
of
and-
stuff coming up. You know, burdock, everything,
coverage.
and that has to be dug up. So, yeah, we're working on it.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I took away from your comments is the importance of volunteerism in this town, especially when it comes to our open spaces, because we just have so much of it. And we have, very few people in public works. So thankfully, to LAC, the Scouts, the Olmsted Society, and Carolyn Hutzing for riding her bike up and down Long Common. We're very, very fortunate. So if somebody wants to volunteer, how could they get on the radar? Is there an email that they can send to, or simply?
Yeah, on the LAC website, there's our email address. There are volunteer work days with its own website with a link, I think multiple links on the Riverside website will take you to the volunteer page for the landscape work days.
Perfect. Thank you. And I encourage our residents to sign up. Thank you. We move on to a resolution. I need a motion and a second to accept the landscape advisory master plan. So if I can have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by trustee Evans and a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Pollock. Any further questions? Ethan, if you'd please call the roll.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Clarity.
Aye.
Trustee Marshazga. Trustee Hannan.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our new business is a resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village manager to execute a contract with Paramedic Service of Illinois, PSI, to provide emergency medical service, billing services for ambulance service rendered by the Village of Riverside Fire Department. Director Buckley.
Thank you, President Ballerine, members of the Village Board, and Manager Francis for allowing me to provide an overview of our new firefighter paramedic contract and emergency medical services billing agreement. The Village of Riverside has utilized contract firefighter paramedic services for over 25 years. Most of that time was with Public Safety Services Incorporated, otherwise known as PSSI. In 2018, Riverside entered into a 5-year contract with PSSI. About 2 years into that contract, PSSI was purchased along with our contract by Paramedic Services of Illinois, otherwise known as PSI. PSI has been our provider for firefighter paramedic services since that time. This current contract expires March 31st of this year. As a result of this contract ending soon, the village staff conducted a process of a request for proposal for not only firefighter paramedic services, but also for emergency medical billing service. This was not an easy task or an assignment to complete, and there were numerous people involved in this process. I would like to thank Manager Francis, Director Johns, Village Attorney Mars for all of their assistance and guidance with reviewing these items. There are also 2 people that truly worked very hard to get these contracts put together. They are Management Analyst Ethan Soll and Public Safety Analyst Danielle Schultz. They both spent countless hours meeting and reviewing items to make sure that Riverside received the best possible product. I will say that everyone did an excellent job putting these contracts together, and I truly appreciate all of their hard work and collaboration that went into making sure that we continue with this extremely important and life-saving service. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ethan to give a brief rundown of each item as they come up. He will start with the emergency medical services billing contract.
Thank you, Director Buckley. So first, we're going to start with the emergency medical billing contract, and then we'll take a motion in a second, and then we'll move on to the paramedic contract. So just a basic overview. of the billing contract, the village will actually get a decreased collection rate on this contract. We will go from a 4.5% on all ambulance billing per month to a 3.5%, and that is because we are going to opt for their paramedic services as well. The contract is initially for 3 years, so it'd be from 2023 to 2025, with the option of going for 2 additional 2-year renewals. So it could go all the way until 2030. And those additional years, so the 2-year extensions, would be a 4% collection rate. It is important to note that PSI did not submit a complete proposal, which is why we are waiving competitive bidding at this time. So we'll take a motion for that first, unless there are any comments.
Do we have any questions for Director Buckley or Clerk Soul? Hearing none, if I can have I'm sorry.
The motion can be a combined motion to waive and approve,
I can just go provide an overview of paramedics first, if that works then.
if you want. I mean,
Okay. If you guys want to. So the paramedic firefighter contract, you will note that this will be the same setup, so 3 years with the option for 2-year renewal periods. At the bottom of your agenda history sheet, you will see our current contract costs and the proposed contract costs. So as you can see, the last 3 years, we were experiencing 2% increases, and the village was very lucky to have that rate for the last 3 years. The new rate, which we're seeing 39% increase next year for this contract, other communities with PSI and other companies were paying that cost for the last 2 or 3 years. So after that big increase, we go back down to a 3% increase for the following 2 years, as well as the 2-year renewals if we opt for that. The other important thing to note is that with this contract, all paramedics will be required to be firefighter certified as well within 6 months of being placed with the village, and that PSI's annual costs were significantly lower than the other proposal received in each year. So, any questions?
Any questions? So what we're doing is we are combining B and C into one motion.
correct. The way the motion would be, I can set it out, is the motion would be to waive the competitive bidding process and authorize the village manager to execute a contract with Paramedic Services of Illinois, Incorporated, PSI, to provide emergency medical EMS billing services for ambulance services rendered by the Village of Riverside Fire Department, and a contract with PSI for firefighter paramedic services in the Village of Riverside.
Okay, thank you. If I can have that from someone?
Motion made.
Motion by Trustee Gallegos, second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Pollock. Any further questions for anyone? Okay,
You're completely confident in this, right, Director Buckley? Fine, that's all I need.
thank you. Hearing none. Ethan?
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Trustee Pollock?
Aye.
Trustee Clarity?
Aye.
Trustee Marshazga?
Aye.
Trustee Hannan? Trustee Gallegos?
Aye.
Motion carries.
President Ballard, if I could say
yes,
one
sir.
more word. This was the first RFP that Ethan and Danielle have worked together doing. They embraced it from the very beginning, did an excellent job working on it, and they're looking forward to their next one. It is truly a long process. It's truly a long process to do an RFP. There's a lot that goes into it. They work very seamless together, and we do look forward to them to doing more for the village, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your work, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. And it's nice to have you back, Ethan.
Thank you, appreciate it. Miss being here.
Where was he?
We move on to trustee reports and cross-community climate collaborative C4 updates. Do we have any trustee reports this evening?
I have one.
Yes, Ms.
But-
Evans.
Do you want to go first?
No, go
I have to find my notes.
Mr. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the tickets for Riverside Brew Fest will be going on sale tomorrow. It is, this year's theme is Brews, Blues, and Barbecue. It will be held on Saturday, April 22nd, from 2 to 6 at Riverside Swim Club. There will be a professional band barbecue from Joe's Backyard Barbecue. And we'll also be offering a whiskey tasting. Tickets are $80 each. So join us for a great time in support of many great causes.
Can you say who's putting this on?
I'm sorry, yes, that's the Riverside Junior Women's Charity that is hosting Riverside Brew Fest.
Thank you. Anything else?
I just would like to say the Cross Community Climate Collaborative will be meeting Thursday, March 30th at 7 p.m. in the terrace room of the library. And anyone who is interested in working on one of the priority areas of place, prosperity, health and well-being, connectivity, living infrastructure, or resource regeneration is welcome to come and attend this meeting because we have a lot of work to do getting through all the community input that was received during our Road to 2050 event and the survey that went out as a companion to that.
Thank you. Mr. Hannan.
All right, I am uniquely positioned as someone who's not running for reelection, so just want to put the word out that we have an election coming up, not only for the board, but for the Library Commission. We had some meetings that were concerned the library, so it's very important, regardless of your feelings, go out, vote, and be heard. The Landmark had a great summary of early voting places and where to find your polling places, so there should be no excuses for people to get out. The weather's supposed to be bad on Saturday, so you can all vote early. I like to vote in Brookfield, so thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, we do not have a need for an executive session this evening, so I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion made.
Motion by trustee Gallego, second? Second by trustee Marshaga. Ethan?
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Clarity.
Aye.
Trustee Marshaga.
Aye.
Trustee Hannan.
Aye.
Trustee Gallagher.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all.